This is USCHO Weekend Review. And here is your host, Ed Trefsker.
Welcome to USCHO Weekend Review for Monday, October 27th, 2025. I'm Ed Trefsker alongside Jim Connolly and Derek Schooley. We're going to get into some of the big top 20 matchups over the weekend, but first, why don't we get into some of these upsets? Friday night, again, it's like the first night of the weekend. Sometimes the first night is on a Thursday, but Sacred Heart took down number 14 Ohio State 2-1 in OT. Clarkson beat number 8 North Dakota 5-2 at home. Merrimack had a big win over Quinnipiac, ranked number 6 last week at Lawler ranked. Colgate and in Orono took out number 10 Maine 3-2, and Maine needed overtime to rally 3-2 on Saturday. And then on Saturday, Northeastern shut out Denver 1-0 in Matthews Arena, a night after Denver put up 7 goals on Boston College. And then Omaha got the last 3 goals in a 5-2 win over number 13 UMass. And, Penn State had to struggle a little bit with Stonehill. But going back to those upsets, we're going to talk a little bit more about this midweek, but things are just very balanced around college hockey right now, and I don't think we should be too surprised by this.
Probably not. I think during the weekend, I kept trying to quantify which of these upsets is the biggest, which one's bigger. The Colgate up in Orono, that's a pretty difficult place to win. I thought Clarkson, beating North Dakota, I didn't expect that one. But we're just seeing upsets. My play-by-play, one of the play-by-play professionals I work with, Eric Galanti, does a great job in his research, and he and I were talking, and we came up with 11 times this year a top 10 team in the first 4 weeks of the season has lost to an unranked opponent. Now, that might not seem like much in a vacuum, but if you compare it to last season, exact same point in the schedule, just two losses by top 10 teams to unranked opponents. So it's kind of, we're seeing, I'm not going to bring the P word in. I don't love to throw that around. That's an overused term, but I think this is a little bit of what we know. A lot of teams are improved this year, and this goes back to that we keep saying it, and that Frank Serratori quote from Atlantic Hockey Media Day. This is the best year of college hockey ever because we have the best pool of players we've ever seen in college hockey. The results are starting to prove them out.
Well, you're also looking at, you talk about Merrimack beats Quinnipiac. Well, then the next day, Long Island turns around and beats Merrimack. And you got Lindenwood and Miami. Miami's the only undefeated team in the nation right now at 6-0. And they only won 3 games last year. So you've got a lot of different things that are happening right now in college hockey that are just, you talk about the P word, parity, anything that you want to, all of this is, it makes for interesting drama each week. And there are better players in college hockey this year. The pool is deeper. There are better players. Everybody's got it. Nobody really knows what they have. And I think it's going to take at least until Thanksgiving to see where everybody shakes out, because everybody's beating everybody right now. And Miami's not going to go undefeated. There's not going to be an undefeated team here in college hockey. And you're going to just continue to see people go down. And what's the bigger upsets? Sacred Heart beating Ohio State. The shots were even in that game. These aren't games that back when teams used to go in and steal teams, and we beat Miami when they were number 1, and you were getting outshot 50-20, and your goalie was standing on your head, on his head. You're beating a number 5 team, and the shots were 60-10. These games are even now. These games are even. We played Notre Dame this weekend. We held them without a shot for almost 20 minutes in a hockey game. These are teams like from numbers 20 to number 40, pretty even in pairwise, NPI, whatever you want to call it. And then you've got the top that are struggling with the bottom. So where do you go with this? we're going to have to, it's going to take a while for this to sort out of who the top and who the bottom is. And that's why you're seeing everybody beat everybody on any given night. And we're going to talk about this again in the second half, but just look at the Western Michigan scores. Completely different scores from night 1 to night 2. So parity, deeper pool, new players, learning college hockey, throw it all out the window. Take everything that you've known about it, and we'll find out at Thanksgiving where this all settles down.
It's in the schools. I mean, you're on the front line of this. You're on the benches. You've played some of these, really good opponents. I think of the series you already, against Michigan. But, when you're coaching the game, does it look different? Do you feel like you see a different looking game on the ice in terms of the skill level and the players involved?
I mean, we played Michigan, we played Notre Dame, we played Bowling Green in an exhibition game. You're seeing a little faster game, but what you're also seeing is you used to know the pool, used to know the players. Hey, I watched this kid play in junior hockey. I watched this kid on TV for 2 years. I watched this kid at the Frozen Four. I've seen this kid. Now you have no idea where these rosters are, and you're really trying to learn the talent pool. You're learning, like, oh, where did that kid come from? Oh, that kid played in the Canadian Junior Hockey Leagues, or this kid played Tier 2. This kid played Major. This kid a transfer. The rosters are so different that it's not you're really kind of the scouting reports you have for teams that you played in previous years. The systems are the same, but the players are different. So you're trying to relearn everything and learn kind of what everybody's strengths and weaknesses are. Where it really is different is the goalies. And you're seeing goalies like we played, like I said, we played Michigan and we played Notre Dame. And I've watched Michigan play. They played, what have they played, 8 games now? They've played the same goalie all 8 games. Notre Dame's played the same goalie all 8 games. You've seen teams running with the same goalie. There's not a lot of teams. I think you're going to see teams, because they're taking kids from major, junior, and from the CHL, where they're used to playing 50 games in a year. What's 34 now? What's playing 2 games with not any travel between cities? That's another thing that's taken into consideration is some of these guys that were used to playing a game 1 in Niagara Falls and then have to turn around and play game 2 in Peterborough, which may not be that far, but you're still traveling from city to city for games. Here you're staying in the same town. And there's just so many different things within that's completely different from anything that we've seen before. So we're still trying to figure out college hockey. So yes, it does look different from the bench a little bit.
And I'm trying to figure out if this is going to be like a major league batting order, that once the starting pitcher sees the second time through, it'll be a little different. Will this be different next year as coaches are more attuned to where these players are coming from, who they are, maybe know a little bit more background on some of these players? I feel like this year, every head coach walks into a game saying there can be a half dozen players I don't know. I called the Quinnipiac, New Hampshire game on Saturday night. Between the 2 rosters, you had 13 players who were either U Sports or CHL players last year that most of these coaches probably didn't know too much about coming into the season. So I think that is maybe where the disconnect will shorten. Maybe as we go through this, maybe next year, 2 years down the road, we're not seeing as much, and maybe then we'll see more of a level of demarcation between levels. But right now, I'm just not seeing high ceiling and a really low floor. I think we're seeing a lot of teams getting into that middle area.
Derek, let me ask you one other area where I've noticed the game changing maybe a little bit more this year than other years, but you're seeing the skill level when it comes to special teams. The power play schemes and play seems just so fast to me now.
It certainly looks that way when we're trying to kill a penalty. It doesn't look that way on our power play right now. But yeah, that's what happens when you increase skill. And if you look at the goal Gavin McKenna scored against Stonehill, how many passes did they make on that goal? And you talk about, what does it say? We got the show notes, and we've kind of moved away from the show notes a little bit, but it just shows you, like, look at Stonehill and Long Island. They went in and Gavin McKenna's got 10 points in 8 games. But those games against Long Island and Stonehill, they did a pretty good job of slowing him down and holding that. That's not, and with the skill level that they had, they made a really nice power play goal that looked really good, where they made a whole bunch of plays. But those aren't world-beating scores, and what a good job those teams did going in and holding those games to be pretty close.
Let's talk a little bit about Penn State. They're 7-1 right now. I haven't seen today's poll, but I know they have some first place votes, and they're going to be like a top 5 team in that. But they've had to come from behind a lot, including against teams that you mentioned. What do we know about them? Is that the way it's going to be? They're going to be a come from behind team, or do they have some problems? I mean, how do you have problems when you're 7-1? But I mean, are there some things that maybe they need to be concerned about?
Yeah, I think you've hit a really good question and brought up what I think is a talking point right now among a lot of people in college hockey. Is Penn State real? Are they really that good? In the win that they get over LIU last week in overtime, taking Stonehill to overtime, a close game on Saturday against Stonehill. Listen, what it comes down to is they got wins. And I think that those are really difficult games to win. Penn State knows there was no upside in either of those matchups. If you lose to LIU, you lose to Stonehill, it looks awful. It would have a negative impact on your NPI, most likely. And then furthermore, you don't get a lot of upside for a victory. You're not boosting your NPI. These are potentially games that in the NPI, they get eliminated at the end of the season when all is said and done from even being calculated. So I look at this as you're getting out of weekends with wins, and that's a good sign. I'm sure Guy Godowski would love to see his team come out and just blow away some of their opponents on the average night. But, if you're going to get into these close games, I think a team that pulls out wins in really, really close games is a championship caliber team. That is what it takes to win championships, to get into the games where you face the adversity, battle it, and come out on top.
One of the things our game against Notre Dame was on Peacock, and I listened to Steve Conroy and on the color for the game on Peacock, watching on the bus ride home, and they talked about Notre Dame's schedule. Big Ten you're gonna find out a lot about that conference with their schedule when they start diving into their conference games now, because they've got Michigan, Penn State, and Michigan State all in the top 5, and somebody's gonna have to start beating some people. They're gonna start playing each other, and they'll start winning and losing some hockey games. And if you're not in those 3, can you imagine having those 3 boom, boom, boom right in a row on your schedule? If you're Notre Dame, if you're Ohio State, and you've got 3 top 5 games in a row, that starts getting a little challenging for you. And that could be tough on your psyche if you don't come out with some positive results and you play well against those, and you play well. That's where you're going to start seeing a little separation in that league if you don't start winning some games. And that's where this is going to get interesting in the Big Ten, because we talked about Minnesota and Minnesota Duluth last week and being a big series. Minnesota gets swept by Duluth. Big Ten's getting really interesting on how that league's going to shake out as far as wins and losses, and how that top 4 or 5 Ohio State gets upset, where that group of 3, the home ice advantage group, falls in that league.
Well, we'll really see it when the NPI starts to really zone in, when it's time for picking the NCAA field. And by the way, before we go to break, I will mention that USCHO has pulled down the NPI for a short while because the numbers just didn't make any sense with the small sample size early on. It's a lot more all over the place than the pairwise was. And so once the Ivy Leagues get underway, those 6 teams in the ECAC, and have some games, then things will start to come into focus, and then we'll be able to look at that. But right now, it was all over the place. And knowing that people like to do a little publicity based on what was the pairwise, hey, we're number 4 in it right now after they played 2 games or whatever, that's not going to be there. So be patient with that, and that'll be up. And this is really a season to feel out what that's going to look like. But it's time for us to break, and we're going to look at some three big series, actually, between nationally ranked teams when USCHO Weekend Review continues.
I'm Cole Caulfield, and I played college hockey.
I'm Adam Fox, and I played college hockey.
I'm Jake Gensel, and I played college hockey.
I'm Kel McCarr, and I played college hockey.
Whether you're a fan or a player, nothing compares to college hockey.
Again, review number 3 Michigan and number 2 Western Michigan split the home and home series. Both teams won at home. I got to watch Thursday night, and I guess you guys did too. Michigan got the shutout, 32 stops in a 3-0 win on Thursday, and then Friday, 5-2 win for the defending national champs. They never trailed, and it was the first loss of the season for Michigan. They're now 7-1-0.
Yeah, I mean, I learned something watching Michigan. I mean, we knew that they're a good team. They come in at 6-0. We hadn't seen them really play a top 5 opponent yet, so that was a really good measuring stick. They have a goaltender, and when you have a goaltender in college hockey, that can be the difference maker. And when you add on the fact that they also have incredibly strong offensive capabilities. That was a fantastic game on Thursday night. I didn't see the Friday game like you, schools, and we're all in arenas. But Thursday is a great night to catch some college hockey on TV. I was watching along and noticed that Michigan was really surgical. I thought that they did a great job of finding their offensive opportunities, and then on the other end, when Western got those opportunities, they got goaltender. They really did, and I thought that that is one thing that will stand out about this Michigan team.
I told you that was the difference. That going into that, after we saw them, is that their goaltending was deep. They're 4 lines deep. They've got probably defensemen and forwards that could play for any other team in the country that are not in the lineup, and they've got a goaltender, and they've run him out every game. He's just probably going to play on the World Junior team for Canada this year. But they're deep, and you saw it on Thursday night, and that's why they made Western look. They made Western look like not a national championship team. I mean, Michigan looked like they were the defending national champions in that game. I will tell you this: the one thing I was watching it without sound. We were at a restaurant, our pregame meal. Before our meal before our game. I didn't like the empty net goal, and I don't know if you guys saw it, where the guy's skates were hanging over the boards. It was shot out of the zone. Puck deflected off of a player who was going for a change, and it deflected off of the player into the net. It was reviewed. I guess it was allowed because you can't challenge a stoppage of play from only the offensive zone. I think that goal needed to be disallowed. I mean, it hits the guy in the bench, goes in the net. The guy wasn't supposed to be hanging over the bench. The refs missed it. They challenged it, but it was a stoppage of play only in the offensive zone that you can challenge that. I think that you got to get that right there, and that's something that needs to be addressed in future years. I don't know if you guys saw that as well.
Yeah, 100%. I saw that school today, and that's 100%. It's just it's like the old line change. You could go off one end of the bench, come on the other end, and referees were having a hard time picking that up. Could you challenge that on video? Could you not? All of that sort of stuff. It's very similar. It's something that will probably get addressed, especially in the rule change year. This will be one that will be shown to the rules committee as an example of a rule that's just a little. You've got plenty of parameters in to call back goals that just don't make sense. That goal doesn't make sense. It's a player that shouldn't have even been on the ice. The puck really technically should be in the bench, in my opinion, in that play.
Yeah, I mean, his leg was over the boards to change, and he was changing for the guy who shot the puck, and the guy wasn't even close to it. I mean, I think the NHL put a rule in this year, if you're sitting on the bench, in that scenario, there's a warning that you can get a too many men in the ice penalty, delay a game. I don't know the actual wording of the call, but I thought that goal should have been disallowed. Thank God it wasn't it was 3-0 at the time, not 1-0. Because that could have really changed the game, because it should have been icing or into the bench, like you said. So just an interesting little way that game ended in the 4-0 first one.
You bring up a thought because I've noticed it. Do we have too many stoppages because players are leaning over too much on the bench?
Yeah, there's a new thing that guys like to sit on the bench or sit on the boards. I think it's a junior hockey thing, and I've been on my guys about sitting on the bench. Like, you don't see NHL players sitting on the bench like that. It's, I think, a junior hockey thing, and yeah, I think there needs to be something addressed on that. I think, like I said, the NHL has addressed legs hanging over the boards. I think you see Kucherov did it all the time, and I think the NHL has addressed. I think that needs to be addressed in our game as well.
Number 4, Boston University, and number 11, Connecticut, going into the weekend. They reverse split their home and home series, with the visitors winning each night. Friday, a crazy offensive explosion, total of 12 goals. But with that one, BU had leads of 2-0, 3-2, 4-3 before they ended up losing 8-4. Meanwhile, down in Stores, it was more of what you would expect between these two teams. A 3-1 decision for BU. Mikhail Yegorov stopped 24 of 25 a night after he allowed 6 goals on 26 shots before he got pulled. So what about that? Kind of a contrast between the teams and winning on the road for both of them.
Yeah, I was really shocked with that Friday game. I don't think either coach probably enjoyed coaching in that game, watching 12 goals. Maybe Mike Kavanaugh enjoyed that, end of the second into the third period of getting the last 5. But that's not the defensive structure that both of these coaches played for. Things changed a lot on Saturday. That was a more typical game. I was probably a little concerned for BU coming off being swept at home against Michigan State, then having that 2-0 lead, the 3-2, 4-3 leads, and then, losing that game 8-4. That probably really stung, more so even than the Michigan State weekend did. I know that OT loss on Saturday against Michigan State was tough, but the bounce back to go down, it was a 5:00 start, I believe, on Saturday. So you had a shorter turnaround. You're traveling, both teams are traveling, you're going down to Stores. I mean, that I thought was a really good bounce back. And that's my first extremely positive sign for this Boston University team this season. I think there'll be more of them. I was getting nervous, though, so I think that's a really good sign.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how UConn does this coming weekend against Merrimack. I think we're going to really see what kind of team both of them are, because Merrimack's been a little bit of an up and down, and then you got that weird split that you talk about there. And Hockey East is kind of you got Merrimack, who right now technically is in first place because they've played a few more games, and then you got UConn right after them. I think that you'll see who's going to be for real in there, and this is one of those. It's a 1-game deal. They just play on Saturday night, and basically you've got Merrimack, who beats Quinnipiac, number 6. Then they lose to Long Island. Which real Merrimack are they? Are they the first place East? Or are they the team that lost to Long Island? And UConn is coming off a big split with BU. It'll be an interesting weekend for them.
One more series to look at. Struggles continuing for Minnesota. They went into the weekend at number 12. Surprisingly, they didn't drop out of the poll that came out today. They're number 19 in the poll, still getting a little reputation there from the voters. But they were swept home and home with Minnesota Duluth 3-0 and 4-1. Meanwhile, Minnesota Duluth, somewhat out of nowhere, is all the way up to 7-1-0. And I say out of nowhere not because Duluth hasn't been a great team over the years, but they've had a couple of down seasons. They are off to a terrific start. They are actually number 10 in Monday's USCHO poll.
Good job by the voters to get Duluth to number 10. Poor job to lead Minnesota in. Seriously, this team's 2-5-1. They're not a nationally ranked team right now. There were so many teams that I thought could have been ranked this week from outside the top 20. I think I brought 2 or 3 teams in from outside the top 20 onto my ballot, Miami being one of them. We've mentioned already, but come on, let's stop with Minnesota. I'm not even going to beat up on Minnesota right now. I'm just going to try to praise Minnesota Duluth, because what a great weekend that is for Scott Sandel and his team. They've had a great start to this season. That's a city that was dying to get back. They won their, a couple of national championships not too long ago, and they really wanted to get back to that place. They're there now. And I think that now that you're going to start NCAC play, you're going to see this is going to be a team that'll be right in the mix. Put them up with Denver, North Dakota. I think Duluth is right there in the NCAC mix.
Well, that's what we talked about last week. We talked about, we were shocked that which Minnesota team had a winning record and which one didn't. And it was the one that was in Duluth compared to the one that was in the cities. And the one that's in Duluth still rolling along, and the one that in the cities is still struggling a little bit. And you're going to see right now, big weekend, North Dakota to open NCHC play for Duluth. And like you said, not to beat up on the Gophers, but they got to get right against Wisconsin this weekend. These are 2 massive weekends for both Minnesota teams right now. You got Duluth to show that they're for real against the Fighting Hawks. I almost said the Fighting Sioux. The Fighting Hawks. After a long trip, going from east to west for North Dakota could be a little bit difficult because they're not used to traveling from the East Coast all the way back home. But now they've got the Bulldogs, and then you've got the Gophers that got to get right somehow. And both kind of rivalry. You got Scotty Sandlin rivalry with North Dakota. You've got the Minnesota-Wisconsin rivalry. Both those teams got to get right here.
We're just about out of time, so we'll wrap it up here. Don't forget, on Wednesdays, we have Upon Further Review, our Wednesday episode where we pick up another topic we didn't have room for on Monday and talk about it in depth. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what we touched on today, about how good everybody is and what's going on this season. So for Jim Connolly, for Derek Schooley, I'm Ed Trefsker, and this has been USCHO Weekend Review.